So, here's a question that probably keeps some of us up at night, and if it doesn't, maybe it should just a little bit. If the absolute unthinkable were to happen, where would you go? I'm talking, of course, about nuclear war. It's a concept that feels both like a relic of the Cold War and a terrifyingly modern possibility. Now, let's be abundantly clear from the outset. There is no place on Earth that is 100% unequivocally guaranteed to be fine safe in the event of a full-scale nuclear exchange. The global consequences, from atmospheric changes to the collapse of supply chains, would be, to put it mildly, profound. But, and this is a significant but, not all places are created equal in the face of such a catastrophe. When we talk about safer places, we're operating in a realm of probabilities and relative risk reduction. It's a grim calculus, to be sure, but a fascinating one. We're looking for places that are far from major cities, which are almost certainly primary targets. We're looking for distance from key military installations. Think missile silos, naval bases, and strategic command centers. We also have to consider the locations of nuclear power plants, which could become catastrophic radiological hazards, even if not directly targeted. And then there's the geography itself. Are there mountains that might shield you from the initial blast, or prevailing winds that might carry radioactive fallout away from you, rather than towards you? It's this combination of factors, low population density, a lack of strategic value, and favorable geography, that we'll be using to explore some of the states that might just offer a slightly better chance of weathering the storm. It's a dark thought experiment, but an important one for understanding the world we've built. So, let's dive in. Alright, let's start with a state that embodies the concept of getting away from it all. Montana, the treasure state. When you picture Montana, you probably conjure images of vast, open plains stretching to meet towering, snow-capped mountains. And that very vastness is its greatest asset in this scenario. With a population of just over 1 million people spread across the fourth largest state by area, the population density is incredibly low. This means fewer people, less infrastructure, and from a strategic perspective, fewer reasons for anyone to waste a multi-million-dollar warhead on your specific location. Now, I know what some of you are thinking, but Rovet, what about Malmstrom Air Force Base and the hundreds of Minuteman III missile silos scattered across the state's central plains? And you are not wrong to bring that up. Those silos are, without question, high-priority targets. An attack on those facilities would be devastating for the immediate areas. However, Montana is enormous. The key here is strategic placement within the state. The western, mountainous regions are a significant distance from that missile field, offering a potential geographic buffer from both the initial blasts and the immediate, most intense fallout. So, the calculus for Montana is one of internal geography. You would want to avoid the Central Plains, specifically the area around Great Falls. But the rugged, remote valleys of western Montana, they offer a compelling combination of isolation and distance from those primary targets. The very remoteness that can make life challenging in normal times, long drives to the nearest city, limited services, becomes a life-saving advantage. It's a trade-off, like everything else in this grim thought experiment, but one that puts Montana high on our list of relatively safer havens. From the rugged west, let's travel all the way to the northeastern corner of the United States, Maine. The Pine Tree State offers a very different but equally compelling kind of safety. Unlike Montana, Maine's primary advantage isn't just its low population density, though that certainly helps. Its real strategic value lies in what it does not have. Maine is notably devoid of major, high-value military targets. There are no active missile silos, no major strategic bomber bases, and no massive naval shipyards that would top an enemy's list. It's, in a military sense, wonderfully and beautifully boring. Furthermore, consider the major population centers of the eastern seaboard. From Boston to New York to Washington, D.C., this corridor is almost guaranteed to be a primary target zone. Maine sits at the very end of that line, upwind from these potential ground zeros for much of the year. Prevailing winds in North America tend to blow from west to east. This means that fallout from strikes on the eastern seaboard or the industrial Midwest would, in many common weather patterns, be carried out over the Atlantic Ocean, potentially sparing much of Maine from the worst of the radioactive dust clouds. This geographic and meteorological luck is a huge, often overlooked factor. Of course, this isn't a perfect shield. Wind patterns can be unpredictable, and a strike on, say, the naval shipyard in Portsmouth, New Hampshire, just across the border, would pose a significant threat. The former Loring Air Force Base, while decommissioned, could still hold some perceived strategic value. But on the whole, Maine's isolation, its lack of tempting targets, and its advantageous position relative to prevailing winds make its remote northern woods and scattered coastal towns a surprisingly resilient choice. It's a place where you might just be able to wait out the worst of the initial chaos. When people think of Oregon, they usually picture Portland, with its vibrant and famously weird culture, or the lush, green coastline. But that's only half the story. If you cross the Cascade Mountain Range, you enter a different world entirely: Eastern Oregon. This is the Oregon we're interested in. It's a high desert landscape of sagebrush, rolling hills and vast empty spaces. It's geographically and culturally distinct from the populous Willamette Valley, and that separation is key to its potential as a sanctuary. The Cascade Mountains act as a formidable natural barrier. In the event of an attack on Portland or the Seattle-Tacoma area to the north, this mountain range could potentially disrupt the immediate blast effects and, depending on wind patterns, could influence the spread of fallout, keeping the worst of it contained to the west. The population here is sparse and the towns are small and self-reliant. There are no major cities, no significant military targets, and no nuclear power plants to worry about. It is, by any measure, a low-priority region. What Eastern Oregon offers, beyond just being off the target list, is a landscape suited for survival. The terrain, with its canyons and hills, offers natural opportunities for shelter and bunkering. It's a place where the skills of self-sufficiency, which are already a part of the local culture in many of these rural communities, would be invaluable. By simply putting a massive mountain range between yourself and the most likely targets on the West Coast, you dramatically increase your odds. It's a reminder that sometimes, the safest place is the one that most people forget exists. Let's move inland to a state that often flies under the radar: Idaho. Known as the Gem State, its real treasure in this context is its profound lack of strategic importance combined with a culture and geography that are remarkably well suited for long-term survival. Like our other contenders, Idaho has a low population density. Outside of the Boise metro area, the state is a patchwork of small towns, sprawling national forests, and vast agricultural lands. This emptiness is, once again, a form of armor. There are very few dots on the map in Idaho that would warrant a nuclear strike. The state's primary military presence is Mountain Home Air Force Base, which would likely be a target. However, the base is located in a relatively isolated part of southern Idaho. The state's rugged, mountainous terrain, especially in the central and northern regions, provides significant distance and a physical barrier from that single primary threat. The Frank Church River of No Return Wilderness, for instance, is one of the largest roadless areas in the lower 48 states. Hiding from the world is, to put it mildly, quite feasible there. But Idaho's true strength might lie in what happens after the initial exchange. The state is an agricultural powerhouse. The fertile Snake River Plain produces a massive amount of food, particularly potatoes, but also wheat, sugar beets, and more. It has abundant fresh water and vast tracts of land suitable for farming and grazing. In a world where global supply chains have vanished, the ability to produce your own food and live off the land becomes the single most important factor for long-term survival. Idaho isn't just a place to hide, it's a place where one might actually be able to rebuild. Our final destination is in the heart of the Midwest, a state that perfectly exemplifies the virtue of being overlooked: South Dakota. Much like its northern neighbor, South Dakota is characterized by wide-open spaces and a very small population. With the exception of Sioux Falls in the southeast corner, the state is profoundly rural. This is the land of the Badlands, the Black Hills, and endless prairies. It is not, by any stretch of the imagination, a hub of industry or strategic military power that would attract enemy attention. Now, some of you history buffs might be thinking, wait a minute, what about Ellsworth Air Force Base and the old Minuteman missile silos? And that's a fair point. Ellsworth, near Rapid City, is home to the B-1 bomber fleet and is the future home of the B-21 Raider, making it a definite target. The decommissioned missile silos, while empty, might also be targeted just to be safe. However, much like Montana, South Dakota is a huge state. The vast majority of the land is a significant distance from the Rapid City area. East of the Missouri River in particular, you find yourself hundreds of miles from the state's only major strategic target. The real appeal of South Dakota, especially the more remote parts, is its potential for a truly off-grid existence. The population is sparse, the land is plentiful, and the communities are self-reliant. It's a place where you can create significant distance between yourself and any potential target or ensuing chaos. It lacks the dramatic mountain ranges of Idaho or Montana, but it compensates with sheer, unadulterated emptiness. In the grim lottery of nuclear war, holding a ticket that nobody else wants to draw is a pretty good strategy. South Dakota is that ticket. So there you have it, Montana, Maine, Eastern Oregon, Idaho, and South Dakota. 5 states that for different reasons might offer a slightly less terrifying place to be, if the worst should happen. But I want to end by circling back to where we started. No place is truly 100% safe. A nuclear winter, the collapse of civilization, the long-term effects of radiation, these are global problems that a good location can only mitigate, not eliminate. The idea isn't to find a perfect paradise that will be untouched, because such a place doesn't exist. The goal is to improve your odds, to find a place where the immediate threats are lower and the chances for long-term survival are higher. Location is a huge piece of the puzzle, but it's not the only piece. Preparedness is just as critical. Having a plan, having supplies, and knowing what to do in the first hours and days after an event can make a far bigger difference than your zip code. And this is where we want to help. If you're in one of these states or are thinking about them and want to drill down deeper, let us know in the comments. We can explore the safest counties or even specific towns, looking at local geography, resources, and infrastructure, because survival isn't just about hiding from the danger, it's about building a resilient life wherever you are. Ultimately, this isn't just about fear, it's about empowerment. Understanding these risks and how geography and planning can lessen them gives us a measure of control over a seemingly uncontrollable situation. It's about being connected to your community, understanding local resources, and fostering the kind of resilience that helps people weather any storm, no matter how terrible. Thinking about the unthinkable is the first step toward being prepared for it. Thank you for watching. Stay safe and be prepared.